Welcome to From Manuscript to Ministry, created and produced by Elder William Moore, the podcast where faith meets the written word. Each week, your hosts David and Martha dive into powerful, self-published books by Christian authors who are boldly using their God-given voices to impact the kingdom. Whether you're an aspiring writer, a reader seeking spiritual growth, or a ministry leader in search of authentic resources, this is your space to be inspired, encouraged, and equipped. Let's explore today's featured book and uncover the life-changing message behind the manuscript.
You know, there is this very specific, incredibly universal physical sensation that I think, every single person listening to this right now can relate to on a visceral level.
Oh, absolutely. I think I know where you're going with this.
Right. So I want you to imagine just for a second that you are wearing a pair of shoes that are exactly one size too small.
Oh, man. The worst.
It really is. So at the beginning of the day, when you first slip them on, it's just, a slight pinch. You look in the mirror, you think to yourself, well, I can handle this. They look great. They fit the dress code. They give me the exact silhouette I'm supposed to have.
Right. You just tell yourself you'll push through the discomfort.
Exactly. I'll just push through. But then the hours tick by. And by hour 4, that slight pinch has transformed into a constant nagging ache.
Yeah, it's right there at the back of your heel.
Or squeezing your toes.
Huh.
And by hour 8, it takes everything in your physical power just to walk normally. You are actively altering your gait, tensing your leg muscles, throwing out your back just to compensate for this footwear.
It's just radiating pain.
Yes. It's this radiating, completely exhausting pain that drains your energy, sours your mood, and honestly prevents you from focusing on absolutely anything else happening around you.
It really is a profound full-body fatigue.
Yeah.
And the tragic irony is that it comes from just trying to exist in a structure that was, fundamentally not built to hold you.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
A structure not built to hold you.
Because you aren't even doing anything particularly strenuous, right?
Mm.
You aren't running a marathon. You might literally just be standing still in a boardroom or, a grocery store checkout line.
Right.
But internally, you are completely and utterly depleted because your body is fighting a constant, invisible battle against confinement.
Completely depleted. And that physical exhaustion, that sensation of fighting against a structure that doesn't fit, that is exactly what we were dismantling today in this deep dive.
We really are, because it's a massive issue.
It is. We are going to explore the deeply unsettling reality that millions of people, and specifically women navigating the endless tightropes of the modern world, are walking around every single day with that exact same feeling.
But they aren't feeling it in their feet.
Exactly. They are feeling it in their souls. They are experiencing this deep spiritual and emotional exhaustion that it just defies a good night's sleep.
Yeah, you can't just nap that away.
No, you can't. And it's not because they are physically overworking, though. Many are. Because they are spending their entire lives squeezing their identities into expectations, roles, and societal norms that were never meant to fit them in the first place.
It is the unseen, agonizing exhaustion of performing an identity rather than actually inhabiting your own.
Performing an identity. That's so well said.
And it is incredibly pervasive. It's the water we swim in. We are conditioned to believe that if the shoe hurts, there is something wrong with our foot, not the shoe.
Oh, that's such a good point. We blame ourselves.
We do. We are told to shrink ourselves, to cut away parts of our personality, to silence our quirks, all to fit into this pre-approved mold of what a successful, acceptable person is supposed to look like.
Exactly. So if you are listening to this right now, maybe you're sitting in gridlock traffic, dreading the office, or maybe you're folding your third load of laundry at 11 p.m., or, maybe you are just hiding in your car, taking a rare 10 minutes for yourself before walking into the house.
We've all been there.
We really have. And if you are feeling overwhelmed, emotionally drained, unseen, or just heavily burdened by the endless contradictory expectations of modern life, I want you to know that this exploration is specifically designed as an invitation for you.
It's an invitation to just stop.
Yes, to breathe, to take those metaphorical, agonizingly tight shoes off for a second, and to actually rest.
That framing is so essential because the material we are diving into today is not about self-optimization.
Thank goodness.
Right. It is not about adding another life hack or another grueling task to your already overflowing to-do list. It is fundamentally about Subtraction.
Subtraction, taking the weight off.
Exactly. It is about removing the artificial weight you've been carrying. It's about getting permission to stop striving for an impossible standard.
Yes, the permission to exhale. And our focal point for this deep dive is a truly remarkable text that offers exactly that permission. We're looking at a book titled Unapologetically, Authentically Me, Embracing God's Unique Design for Women.
Such a powerful title.
It is. It's authored by Elder William Moore. Now, before we even crack open the theological and psychological depth of the text itself, the context of how this manuscript came to exist is incredibly grounding.
The backstory is just beautiful.
It really is. Elder Moore didn't sit down to write a sterile theological textbook. He didn't write a generic mass-market self-help manual filled with, corporate buzzwords. He wrote this deeply empathetic, profoundly intimate book for his wife, Catherine.
Which, that fundamentally changes the entire texture and resonance of the reading experience.
Totally. It changes how you hear the words.
Because when a text is born out of a specific, intimate relationship, when it is essentially a love letter of spiritual affirmation designed to uplift, protect, and encourage a single human being that the author deeply cherishes, it carries a warmth and a sincerity that you just cannot manufacture in a boardroom.
You really can't. It's so genuine.
You are reading words that were painstakingly chosen to heal and fortify a specific soul. And ironically, the hyper-specificity of that love makes it universally applicable to anyone who needs that exact same healing. It bypasses the intellect and goes straight to the heart.
It really does. It feels like you are being invited into a private sanctuary, like you are overhearing a conversation of pure grace. And reading through these pages, moving from the introduction all the way through to the profound conclusion, a central premise emerges that I want to pose directly to you, the listener, as we begin this journey.
This is the big question.
Right. We spend so much of our lives running on this endless treadmill of self-improvement and societal approval. But what if the peace you have been desperately searching for was never actually going to be found in your next promotion or your next achievement?
What if it's not about doing more?
Exactly. What if it was never going to be found in finally getting the approval of that one hypercritical family member, or in winning the terrible, unwinnable game of comparison? What if that elusive peace is only found in finally, unapologetically, embracing who you were already created to be?
That is the ultimate paradigm-shifting question of this text. And to truly grasp the profound oasis of peace that Moore describes later in the book, specifically in chapter 23, which is beautifully titled Embracing Contentment, we actually have to do some foundational groundwork.
Right. We can't just skip to the end.
No, we have to rewind to the very beginning of the book, because you cannot simply decide to embrace contentment on a Tuesday afternoon if you haven't fundamentally dismantled and rebuilt how you view your own origins and your own uniqueness.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, the introduction of this book sets the architectural foundation for everything that follows. Without it, contentment is just a fleeting mood. With it, contentment becomes an impenetrable fortress.
All right, well, let's look at that foundation then. Because Moore starts with a massive cosmic claim right out of the gate in the introduction. He takes us all the way back to the beginning of human existence.
He really starts at square one.
He does. He references Genesis 1.27, the concept of humanity being created in God's image, and he pairs it with the famous poetic words of Psalm 139.14 about being fearfully and wonderfully made.
Classic verses.
Right. Now, his core argument here is that being created by a divine designer means we are not, and I absolutely love this phrasing from the text, we are not random coincidences. We are, quote, a meticulously planned symphony of individuality.
What's fascinating here is the specific language he uses. Let's really look at the word symphony.
Okay, let's break that down.
Think about what a symphony actually entails in the real world. It is not just a loud, uniform noise. It is incredibly complex, highly intentional arrangement where dozens of entirely different instruments, sweeping string sections, blaring brass, subtle woodwinds, booming percussion, they all play completely different notes, right?
Yeah, often at completely different tempos.
Exactly. But they do it to create a harmonious whole.
Yeah.
If the percussion section looks at the violins and decides, you know what, we need to sound smooth and melodic like them, the entire symphony falls apart.
It just becomes a muddy mess.
Right. The sweeping, breathtaking beauty of the music relies entirely on the distinct, meticulously planned differences of each instrument doing exactly what it was designed to do.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because I hear that, and visually, intellectually, it's a beautiful metaphor. But hold on, I'm struggling with this a bit. Or at least, I want to play devil's advocate for the listener who has been around the block a few times.
Fair enough. Hit me.
Because we have all heard these exact verses before, haven't we? If you grew up in or around any kind of faith tradition, or even just Southern culture, phrases like fearfully and wonderfully made can very easily start to feel like cross-stitch material.
Oh, totally. The Hobby Lobby aesthetic.
Yes. They are the verses you see painted on a piece of reclaimed wood or printed on a floral coffee mug. They've been repeated so often that they can feel like theological elevator music.
That is a great way to put it.
So my question is, how does Moore take this ancient, potentially overused text and make it practically aggressively applicable to the listener who is dealing with the crushing stress of the 21st century right now? Like, how does this help the woman who is completely burned out from her corporate job and feeling like a failure as a mother?
That is exactly the right pushback, because you're absolutely right. A cliche is just a profound truth that has lost its razor edge through endless, thoughtless repetition.
Right. Gets blunted.
What Moore does here is take that Hobby Lobby cross-stitch and sharpen the edge until it cuts through the noise. He doesn't just offer a blanket, generic, God loves you, you are a special snowflake kind of message.
Thank goodness, because we don't need more of that.
Right. He takes the concept of divine creation and connects it specifically to the exact parts of yourself that society tells you to hide. The text explicitly points to your eccentricities and hobbies. He argues that understanding your divine origin gives you an indisputable strength that frees you to embrace your deeply specific individuality without reservation or remorse. He is pulling the concept out of the clouds and bringing it into the mundane reality of your weird sense of humor, your hyperfixations, your introversion or extroversion.
Let me try to wrap an analogy around this to see if I'm tracking the mechanics of what you're saying. I was thinking about this like a master clockmaker in a dusty, dimly lit, incredibly precise workshop.
Okay, I like where this is going.
A lot of times when we think about God creating humanity, we think of the broad, sweeping strokes. We think he made the beautiful mahogany casing of the clock, the glass face, the gold hands. We think he made the generic human template, 2 arms, 2 legs, a heartbeat.
The basic casing, right?
But Moore is arguing that God isn't just a carpenter building the casing. He is the master clockmaker sitting with a magnifying glass, specifically designing the eccentric, oddly shaped, microscopic little gears inside that make you, well, you. The quirks, the loud laugh that you always try to muffle. The intense, almost weird passion for vintage botany books or 90s hip-hop or analyzing spreadsheets.
Yes, that is the exact mechanism of his argument. You and society at large often view those little eccentric gears as flaws. You view them as rough edges that need to be sanded down, or at best just random, slightly embarrassing glitches in your personality.
Like, oops, how did that get in there?
Right, you sit in a meeting and think, why am I like this? Why do I care so much about this niche detail when everyone else is focused on the big picture? Or you scroll social media and think, why don't I enjoy the aesthetic, minimalist lifestyle everyone else seems to effortlessly maintain?
Oh man, that is so relatable.
But if you adopt Moore's worldview, those aren't glitches. Those aren't mistakes. They are deliberate, masterful, highly intentional brushstrokes by a creator who does not make mistakes.
It totally shifts the locus of perspective. Think about it like art appraisal. If you are holding a priceless, one-of-a-kind original painting by a legendary master artist, and you look closely and see a strange, jagged streak of bright blue paint in the bottom corner that doesn't seem to match the rest of the landscape, what do?
You don't mess with it.
Exactly. You don't take a wet rag and frantically try to wipe it off so the painting looks more normal. You assume the master artist put it there for a very specific, brilliant reason that you might not fully understand yet. You study it. You protect it. You appreciate it.
Precisely. And let's follow that logic down the rabbit hole and look at the profound psychological impact of truly, deeply internalizing that reality.
Okay, let's go there.
If your eccentricities, your unique passions, your specific personality traits, even the ones that feel inconvenient to the modern world, are divinely authored, then hiding them to fit in isn't just a disservice to your own mental health.
It's deeper than that.
It is actually a theological issue. In a spiritual sense, hiding your true self is hiding a masterpiece. It is taking a meticulously planned, beautifully crafted instrument entirely out of the symphony because you are embarrassed that you sound like a tuba when society says you should sound like a flute.
Oh, wow. Hiding it is actually an affront to the designer.
Yeah.
You are looking at the master clockmaker and saying, I don't like this gear you spent eternity designing, so I'm going to file off the teeth so I look like the gear next to me.
Exactly. It's rejecting the design.
That is heavy, but it is also incredibly profoundly liberating because it means the pressure is completely off to be anyone else. You are officially off the hook for not being the woman next door.
It really is ultimate freedom.
But, and this is a massive unavoidable, but realizing that you are a masterpiece in the safety and quiet of your own mind sitting in your living room is one thing. Actually walking out your front door, getting in your car, and living like an unapologetic masterpiece in a world that is obsessed with conformity. A world that financially and socially punishes people who step out of line. That is an entirely different beast.
It requires a lot of grit.
It does. It requires a very specific, radical, almost aggressive type of bravery. Which brings us to the friction point and perfectly tees up the next major theme of the text, the courage to defy norms.
Because, let's be painfully honest, the world does not inherently reward raw individuality, especially not for women. The world rewards compliance.
Oh, completely.
The corporate world rewards blending into the company culture. Social media rewards adhering to the current trending aesthetic. The world rewards neatly fitting into the pre-constructed box.
Right, and Elder Moore does not sugarcoat this reality. He acknowledges the intense friction directly. He writes that it takes an immense daily amount of courage to reject the norm and embrace the woman God created you to be in a world that, quote, frequently dictates how we should act, look, or think.
It's an uphill battle.
It is. He talks about this visceral, painful process of peeling aside the masks, shedding the heavy layers of societal expectations with every step you take.
The metaphor of the mask is so potent if you really sit with it. A mask is something you wear to present a static, universally acceptable, unbothered face to the audience.
It looks perfect from the outside.
Right. But what does a mask actually do to the wearer? It restricts your peripheral vision. It restricts your oxygen and makes it hard to breathe. It traps your own hot air against your face.
Oh, that sounds awful.
And most importantly, underneath it, your actual living, breathing expressions are completely hidden in the dark. To peel that off is to expose your bare face to the wind and the elements. It is terrifying.
Absolutely terrifying.
And to anchor this terrifying courage, to give the reader a framework for what this unmasking actually looks like, Moore does something truly fascinating with a very traditional, highly debated biblical archetype, the Proverbs 31 woman.
Okay, yes. We have to talk about the Proverbs 31 woman, because if we are talking about masks and societal expectations, this is ground zero for so many women.
It really is a controversial passage for a lot of people.
It is. I have heard from countless friends across multiple different backgrounds that this specific chapter in the Bible can actually be a massive source of crushing anxiety and guilt.
Oh, for sure.
Because traditionally, the way she is often presented in sermons or literature, she is this impossible, exhausting domestic superhero. She is up before dawn while everyone else is sleeping. She is somehow making her family's clothes by hand. She is engaging in complex real estate transactions. She's cooking gourmet meals for her household and the servants, planting vineyards. And her lamp never goes out at night.
She literally never sleeps.
Never. It can feel like a weaponized checklist of unattainable manic perfection.
It absolutely can. Historically, she has often been weaponized as the ultimate standard of relentless domestic output. She is held up as the reason you aren't doing enough. But Moore introduces a massive, deeply restorative paradigm shift here.
Thank God. How does he see her?
He looks at that exact same text, but he does not frame her as a domestic archetype to be exhausted by. He frames her as a towering pillar of power, deep knowledge, and unapologetic authenticity. He completely bypasses the checklist of tasks and views her through the lens of defiance.
Defiance. I have to say, I love that word being associated with her. But explain that to me, because defiance usually conjures up images of, like, teenage rebellion or unnecessary hostility. How is she defiant?
It is an incredibly powerful reframing. Moore says she is a representation of being unwavering in her beliefs, caring in her service, and shamelessly authentic.
Shamelessly authentic.
Yes. By interpreting her actions through this lens, Moore is pointing out that the Proverbs 31 woman isn't blindly conforming to the patriarchal expectations of her ancient time, nor is she a template for the suffocating hustle culture of ours.
Oh, that's a great point.
Think about it. A woman in the ancient Near East buying land and running a profitable business. That was highly countercultural. She's a symbol of defiance against arbitrary, limiting constraints.
She's breaking out of the box.
Exactly. She is operating entirely out of her own divine design. utilizing her own unbridled passions and specific skills, regardless of what the surrounding culture expected of a woman in her position.
That reframing changes absolutely everything. It takes her from being a source of guilt to being a source of empowerment. It reminds me of the heavy costume analogy.
Tell me more.
Have you ever done theater? Think about being cast in a theatrical play, and it's the middle of a sweltering July summer, but you are forced to wear this incredibly heavy, velvet, multi-layered Victorian-era costume with a tight, bone-crushing corset.
Oh, I'm sweating just thinking about it.
Right. That costume represents societal expectations. You are standing under hot stage lights, you are sweating profusely, you can barely take a full breath, and 90% of your physical and mental energy is going into simply staying upright in the costume without passing out.
You're just trying to survive the outfit.
Yes. You can't even focus on your actual job, which is acting. Your performance is rigid and exhausted. But when you peel that costume off, when you take off the mask, like Moore suggests, suddenly you are light. You can breathe. You can move.
And that lightness is exactly where your actual God-given energy can finally be deployed. Moore says that in this very defiance, in the act of taking off the corset, there is freedom. It allows you to surpass constraints.
That is beautiful.
And here's why this distinction is so vital for the listener to understand. Defying expectations in Moore's context is not about being rebellious just for the sake of being difficult, edgy, or contrarian. It's a highly purposeful, almost surgical rebellion.
Expand on that, because I think it's a trap a lot of people fall into. When we talk about unmasking or defying norms, it can easily devolve into just being selfish or adopting a persona of, I don't care about anyone else, deal with it.
Right. It is not rebellion without a cause, and it is certainly not an excuse for arrogance or cruelty. It is about clearing the debris.
Clearing the debris.
Yes. If your life is entirely cluttered with the masks and the heavy velvet costumes of who your boss, your mother-in-law, or Instagram says you should be, there's literally no room left for the actual gifts you were given to operate.
They're completely buried.
Exactly. Moore writes that by accepting his individuality, he learns about the unbridled passions and skills that the master craftsman lovingly placed upon me. And crucially, he notes that these treasures are meant to be distributed to encourage and inspire others.
Oh, so it's outward-facing.
Completely outward-facing. You cannot share your unique treasures, your specific notes in the symphony, with the world if they're buried under the heavy costume of conformity. You defy the norm not to isolate yourself, but to make yourself available for your true purpose.
That is so profoundly good. You clear the debris, you take off the mask so the real unhindered you can actually be of service to others. It's not about ego, it's about utility. But let's pause and be brutally real for a second. Let's look at the actual physics of this. If you take off the heavy armor of conformity, if you peel off the mask that has been keeping you safe and blended in, you are exposing yourself.
You are. It's risky.
You are stepping out of the camouflage. You are putting your raw, authentic, quirky, perhaps slightly eccentric self out there in the open air. And the elements in the real world can be incredibly harsh.
Very harsh. People are not always kind.
Exactly. People do judge. People do criticize. Your coworkers might think you're strange. Your extended family might make passive-aggressive comments. So how on earth do we protect ourselves once we are unmasked? If we are raw and authentic, aren't we easily wounded?
It feels that way, absolutely.
This tension leads us right into one of the most intriguing, mind-bending concepts in the entire book. It's found in Moore's reflections on Psalm 29.2, and his strategy for defeating what he so brilliantly calls the ghost of comparison.
Oh, this is truly where the theological rubber meets the road in terms of psychological resilience. The author poetically describes navigating the stormy symphony of life, acknowledging that it's not always sunny skies, and he specifically calls out the ghost of comparison that looms over everything.
The ghost of comparison. What an incredibly visceral phrase. Because comparison really does haunt us like a ghost, doesn't it?
It really does. It's everywhere.
It is totally invisible, it has no physical substance, but it follows you everywhere, rattling its chains. You can be having a perfectly fine Tuesday, and then you open an app or you hear a piece of gossip, and you look at someone else's career trajectory, their immaculate family vacation photos, their seemingly perfect marriage.
And boom, there it is.
Yes. And this ghost just materializes and whispers in your ear, "You are behind, you are failing, you aren't enough."
It is a specter that completely steals your joy and paralyzes your momentum. And Moore's antidote to this paralyzing ghost is found in a profound, almost counterintuitive realization.
Yeah.
He states that his sincerity is not a source of weakness, but an invulnerable strength.
Okay, stop the tape. I have to push back hard on this one because this feels like a massive paradox that doesn't hold up in the real world.
All right, let's hear the pushback.
Sincerity, by its very definition, implies a lack of pretense. It means being open, honest, transparent, and showing your true feelings without a shield. Culturally, psychologically, we view that as inherently vulnerable. It is soft. It is exposing your neck to the wolves.
I see what you mean.
So how in the world can Moore claim that sincerity is an invulnerable strength? If I walk into a hostile corporate environment tomorrow and I am 100% sincerely, authentically myself with all my quirks and flaws exposed, I am handing my critics ammunition. I am in the exact position to be most hurt by their judgment. How does Moore justify calling that a fortress?
It sounds like a contradiction, but it is actually a brilliant emotional paradox that makes perfect sense once you understand the underlying mechanics. Let's really think about the mechanics of vulnerability and why it usually hurts.
Okay, I'm listening.
Usually when we decide to be authentic and put our true selves out there, we're secretly, desperately hoping for applause. We're hoping society looks at our raw self and says, "Wow, you are so brave. We love this version of you."
Oh, wow. Yeah, we want the pat on the back.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And because our end goal is still their approval, our strength is entirely tied to their opinion. We have outsourced our emotional stability. That makes us incredibly fragile. If we are sincere and they criticize us, our fragile fortress crumbles because we gave them the power to destroy it.
Right. We are taking off the mask, but we are still handing the audience the remote control to our self-esteem. We are saying, here is the real me. Please validate it.
Exactly. You are still playing the game, just with different rules. But Moore shifts the entire locus of control. He completely short-circuits the game. He writes, "I find my worth in the limitless love of my Creator. Therefore, this strength frees me from the need for acceptance and recognition."
Frees me from the need.
This is the key. Sincerity becomes an invulnerable fortress because you are no longer asking the world for permission to exist. You aren't being sincere to win them over. You are being sincere because it is your divine design.
So it's not a performance anymore.
Not at all. When you find your foundational worth in the divine, the world's judgment completely loses its teeth. You are sincere, yes, you are exposed, yes, but you are completely insulated from the need for human validation. A critique of your personality doesn't destroy you because your worth was never anchored in their approval to begin with.
Oh man, that is a massive paradigm shift. Sincerity isn't soft if it doesn't require validation. It's like titanium. Let's make this tangible. Let's put some flesh and bone on this concept for the listener.
Let's do it.
Imagine a highly relatable scenario, maybe a networking event, a corporate retreat, or even just a tight-knit neighborhood book club. Picture Sarah.
Okay, we've all met a Sarah.
We have. Sarah is desperately trying to fit in. She is wearing the mask. She is laughing loudly at jokes. She actually finds offensive. She is vigorously nodding and agreeing with opinions she secretly hates. She is constantly scanning the room, reading the micro-expressions of the alpha personalities to see if she is being accepted.
Exhausting.
It is. On the outside, she might look protected because she is blending in seamlessly, but internally, she is incredibly weak, exhausted, and riddled with anxiety because her entire identity in that room hinges on the shifting moods of other people.
And a single strong wind of criticism, a raised eyebrow, a slight snub being left off an email chain would knock her over entirely. She would spiral.
Yes. She is built on sand. Now contrast that with Jessica, who walks into that exact same room, but she has internalized Moore's concept of invulnerable sincerity.
How does Jessica act?
She is just comfortably, quietly, securely herself. She's polite, but she doesn't force a fake laugh if the joke isn't funny. She shares her genuine thoughts without being aggressive, but also without immediately apologizing for taking up space.
She doesn't need them to validate her.
Exactly. She doesn't seem to need anything from the room. She isn't scanning for approval. Have you ever met someone like that? That person has a massive gravitational pull. They exude this quiet, intimidating, invulnerable strength, specifically because they refuse to play the game of performing for acceptance.
And that quiet gravity is exactly what Moore means when he says his sincerity becomes a tune that floats through the sky and resonates with God's heart.
Oh, that's a beautiful image.
When you are no longer performing an exhausting tap dance for the room, you are free to just be the specific instrument you were created to be. You completely defeat the ghost of comparison because you realize the fundamental absurdity of it.
Because you aren't in competition anymore.
Exactly. You aren't even playing the same instrument as anyone else. You can't compare a violin's melody to a snare drum's rhythm. They are judged by entirely different metrics. When you stop trying to be the best snare drum and just accept that you are a violin, the ghost of comparison vanishes.
I'm writing this quote down and putting it on my mirror. This strength frees me from the need for acceptance and recognition.
That's life-changing.
If you could bottle that specific feeling, that release of pressure, you would be a billionaire overnight. It is the ultimate elusive freedom.
It truly is.
And once you stop fighting that ghost, once you build and secure this invulnerable fortress of sincerity, you finally cross the threshold into the new territory that Moore focuses on so beautifully in the climax of his thought process. You step out of the stormy symphony and you step into what he calls the delicate oasis.
We finally made it.
Yes, and this brings us to the absolute beating heart of our deep dive today, Chapter 23.
Chapter 23, titled Embracing Contentment. Everything we have discussed so far for the past half hour, understanding your meticulous divine design, finding the courage to peel off the heavy masks of expectation, and defeating the ghost of comparison by shifting your locus of validation, all of that has been the grueling journey through the hot desert.
It's been a long hike.
It has. And the purpose of that journey was to reach this specific life-giving oasis. You cannot survive in the oasis of contentment if you are still wearing the heavy velvet costume of comparison.
I just love the language he uses to describe this space. The imagery is so tactile and soothing. After talking about the storms and the battles, he defines contentment as a refuge of quiet that transcends the ebbs and flows of life. He calls it a calming tune that resounds in my heart amid the symphony of genuineness.
It feels like a deep, cleansing breath.
It really does. And to anchor this profound psychological concept, Moore turns to the Apostle Paul, specifically referencing the famous passage in Philippians 4, verses 11 and 12.
These are arguably some of the most famous, most quoted, and perhaps most deeply challenging words on the concept of contentment ever written in human history.
Remind us what Paul says there.
Paul writes, I have learned to be content whatever the circumstances. I know what it is like to be in need, and I know what it is like to have plenty. I have learned the secret of being content in any and every situation, whether well-fed or hungry, whether living in plenty or in want.
It is astonishing and honestly a bit convicting when you remember the historical context of when Paul actually penned those words.
It wasn't a spa retreat.
No, he wasn't sitting on a pristine beach in the Mediterranean sipping a smoothie, having a great mental health day. He was locked in a dark, damp Roman prison, facing the very real possibility of execution. His circumstances were objectively horrific, and yet he claims possess the secret of contentment.
It defies logic.
It really does. Moore takes this ancient biblical anchor and translates it into a profound, radical declaration for the modern woman facing the chaos of today. The text reads, "With each breath, I embrace the fact that my identity is not defined by my belongings, successes, or societal standards."
We really need to pause, slow down, and recognize just how aggressively radical that statement is. It sounds nice when you read it in a book, but living it out is an act of rebellion.
It absolutely is.
In today's hyper-connected, achievement-obsessed, algorithm-driven culture, our entire economic and social system is built on the exact opposite premise. The world tells you, screaming at you every single day through thousands of targeted advertisements, Instagram reels, and LinkedIn updates, that your identity is absolutely, definitively defined by your belongings, the square footage of your house, your career trajectory, your follower count, and how well your body meets ever-changing societal beauty standards.
Yes, the world literally runs on discontent. Discontent is the fuel in the engine. If you are perfectly happy with your face, you won't buy the $80 anti-aging cream.
Nope.
If you are perfectly happy with your 2015 sedan, you won't take out a loan for the 2026 luxury SUV. The system needs you to feel like you are lacking something.
Exactly. Discontent is the multi-trillion-dollar engine of modern consumerism and status seeking. Therefore, when Moore talks about contentment, we must understand that contentment is not a passive, sleepy, apathetic state of mind where you just don't care about anything.
It's not giving up.
No. Contentment is an active, fierce, radical rebellion against the culture of more. It is the act of looking at a massive, powerful system perfectly designed by marketing psychologists to make you feel inadequate, staring it right in the face and calmly saying, "No, thank you. I am already whole. You cannot sell me my own worth."
I have chills. You cannot sell me my own worth. So let's bring this right down to street level. What does this actually mean for you, the listener, in your messy, everyday life? I want to speak directly to that intense weariness we talked about at the very beginning of this conversation, the pain of the tight shoes.
The physical toll of the treadmill.
Yes. If you are feeling completely exhausted right now, dragging yourself through the week, I want you to consider a radical possibility. Your exhaustion might not be coming from physical labor. It might not even be coming from your packed schedule or your lack of sleep.
Where is it coming from then?
Your exhaustion might be coming from the spiritual and emotional treadmill you have been running on for decades. The treadmill where you are constantly trying to earn your right to exist, trying to define your worth by the next promotion, the next kitchen renovation, the next milestone your kid hits.
You're just running and running.
You keep upping the speed, running faster and faster, but the horizon never gets any closer. You never actually arrive at enough. Contentment, as Moore describes it, is the radical act of reaching out your hand and slamming the giant red stop button on the treadmill.
It is stepping off the machine entirely. It is taking solace in the abundance of God's provision, as Moore writes. It is the deep cellular knowing that you are whole right now, today, exactly as you are sitting in your car or your kitchen.
You don't have to add anything.
Right. You do not need to acquire one more physical thing, or achieve one more professional accolade, or lose 5 more pounds to be fearfully and wonderfully made. Your worth is a fixed asset. It cannot depreciate.
Okay, this is beautiful. It is deeply restorative. But, and this is a massive flashing red light of a but that always comes up when we introduce this topic to modern audiences.
I know exactly what you're going to ask.
I can hear the high achievers, the type A personalities, the entrepreneurs out there getting very nervous right now. Because the immediate terrifying fear is this. If I reach out and hit the stop button on the treadmill, if I decide that I am completely 100% utterly content with exactly who I am and what I have right now at this very second, do I just give up?
Do I lose my edge?
Exactly. Does all my drive evaporate? Do I stop setting goals? Do I cancel my gym membership, quit striving for the promotion, and just sit on my couch eating potato chips for the rest of my life? Does embracing true contentment basically equal settling for laziness and apathy?
This is such a critical pivot point. It raises an incredibly important question, and it addresses perhaps the single most common destructive misunderstanding about the nature of contentment.
We confuse it with giving up.
In our culture, we absolutely conflate peace with apathy. We think if we aren't stressed, we aren't productive. But Moore anticipates this fear perfectly. He doesn't leave us hanging. And this brings us to what might be the most crucial, life-altering distinction in the entire book.
Yes, I am so glad he addressed this. Let me read this exact quote from the text, because it is a lifeline for anyone who wants peace but still has dreams. Moore writes, "Accepting satisfaction does not imply settling for mediocrity."
Let that sink in.
Let me say that again. Accepting satisfaction does not imply settling for mediocrity. On the contrary, it gives me the confidence to dream big and pursue my passions with zeal.
With zeal.
I need to read that second part a third time just to let it hit home. It gives me the confidence to dream big and pursue my passions with zeal. This is the brilliant paradox of what we can call zealous contentment.
Let's deeply analyze the underlying psychology of ambition here, because we need to understand the mechanism of why this works. There are essentially 2 very different engines that can drive a person's ambition.
Okay, walk us through the engines.
The first engine is the one most of us are familiar with, the engine of discontent. This is when your drive is fueled by a profound feeling of lack. The internal monologue is, I am currently not enough. Therefore, I must achieve this specific goal, the promotion, the degree, the perfect body, so that I will finally become enough and people will finally respect me.
Ouch. That's a familiar engine.
It is. And ambition driven by the engine of discontent is frantic. It is chaotic. It is deeply anxiety-inducing. Why? Because if you fail, and failure is always a possibility in life, you aren't just missing a goal.
It's an existential crisis.
You are completely devastated because your core identity, your justification for breathing was riding on that success. It is a terrifying, exhausting way to live, constantly running from the bear of inadequacy.
Exactly, because in that model, failures isn't just a bump in the road or a learning opportunity. It is an indictment of your fundamental worth as a human being. It proves the ghost of comparison right.
Right, but then you have the second engine, the engine of contentment. This is what Moore is advocating for. When you know deeply and truly that your worth is already entirely secure, when you are resting in the unchangeable reality of God's love, and your identity as a masterpiece is locked in a vault, your ambition doesn't vanish. It transforms.
How does it transform?
It is no longer driven by desperation or fear. It is driven by joy, deep curiosity, and a passionate desire to utilize the specific gears and gifts the master craftsman gave you. You aren't working to earn your identity. You are working to express it.
Wow. Working to express it.
Ambition driven from a place of complete contentment is powerful, highly focused, and incredibly resilient because the fear of destruction has been removed.
I love this concept so much because it completely rewires how we approach risk. It makes me think of an analogy. It is exactly like playing with house money at a casino. Oh, that's a great analogy. Break that down.
Think about it. If you walk into a casino and you sit down at a table and you are betting your actual mortgage money you desperately need to survive, money that determines if you have a roof over your head next month, how are you going to play the game?
You're going to play terrified.
You're going to play tight. You're going to be sweating, second-guessing every move, and paralyzed by anxiety. Every single loss, even a small one, feels like a literal heart attack because your survival is on the line.
Right. It's life or death.
But what if you walk into that same casino and the manager meets you at the door, hands you a massive stack of chips, and says, "These are on the house. You cannot cash these out, but you can play with them. Your bank account is safe. You literally cannot lose your own money today."
Oh man, that changes everything.
How do you play the game then?
You play it completely loose, you take massive audacious risks, you try big strategies, you laugh when you lose a hand, you have fun with the process. Because your core foundation, your actual bank account, your survival is totally secure regardless of the outcome on the table.
Exactly.
Zealous contentment is playing the game of life with house money. Because your foundational worth is already entirely secure in the creator, because you are deeply content with who you are, you can actually take bigger risks.
That is so freeing.
You can dream huge, audacious dreams. You can finally write that messy first draft of a book. You can start that niche business. You can apply for the job you are underqualified for, or go back to school at age 50 with incredible zeal. Why? Because if you fail, if the business goes under or the book gets rejected, it won't destroy your identity.
It's just house money.
Yes, it's just house money. You just dust yourself off, laugh, and try something else. And as Moore beautifully adds to this thought, it also means that when you do win, you can celebrate accomplishments without being consumed by the desire for more.
You can actually enjoy the victory.
You can genuinely enjoy it, drink the champagne, and go to sleep peacefully because you don't instantly need the next bigger hit of success to feel alive.
It breaks the addiction to achievement. And imagine the profound liberation of experiencing that as a daily reality. Moore writes about the practical output of this mindset. With each morning, I awaken with a grateful heart, knowing that each day is a gift to be treasured. In the embrace of satisfaction, I choose to live fully in the present moment rather than the endless search of more.
Living fully in the present.
This is where speculation and extrapolation become incredibly inspiring. We talk about changing the world, but think about what a culture, a workplace, or a family would look like if the women at the center of it operated from this deep, unshakable place of secure, zealous contentment.
It would be absolutely unstoppable. If you remove the desperation for approval, you instantly remove the petty tearing down of others. You wouldn't have the backstabbing or the toxic gossip because nobody is fighting for the scraps of validation.
The environment completely shifts.
You wouldn't have the epidemic of mid-career burnout. You would just have this profound, vibrant, creative energy. Imagine waking up, pouring your coffee, and viewing each day as a blank canvas where you get to collaborate with the master craftsman, rather than waking up, putting on the heavy armor, and viewing the day as a brutal battleground where you have to constantly prove you deserve to take up space.
It is such a beautiful, sweeping vision for how life could be lived.
It is a beautiful vision, but visions must be lived out in the gritty reality of a Tuesday morning. The brilliance of Moore's book is that he doesn't just leave us floating in the philosophical clouds. He brings the theology right down to the pavement.
He gives us the practical tools.
Because we all know, even with this newfound healthy ambition, even with this secure identity and house money, life is still going to happen. The car will break down, the kids will get sick, the client will yell at you.
The treadmill might be off, but the road is still bumpy.
Exactly. How does Moore suggest we actually walk through our daily lives and handle the inevitable friction while maintaining residence in this oasis?
That is the crucial next step, the how-to of contentment. And Moore outlines some incredibly practical grounding applications for daily life. He gives us the guardrails. He writes that he is actively not swayed by the seductive song of the world's standards.
And how does he resist that?
The way he resists that siren song is by purposefully grounding himself in the knowledge that his ultimate worth is determined by the depth of my connection with God and others, rather than by what he possesses, what he achieves, or what his title is.
Connection over possession.
That is the daily, hourly practice. And think about the mechanics of how that shifts your reality. It completely rewrites your daily metrics for success.
I love that. Tell me how.
If your metric for a successful day is inbox zero, making a certain amount of money, and getting praise from your boss, you are still on the treadmill. But if you hit the stop button, your metric for success changes. A successful day is no longer just about what you aggressively ticked off the to-do list. It is about the quality of presence you offered.
Wow. Quality of presence.
Did I connect with my Creator today? Did I look my child in the eye when they spoke to me? Did I offer genuine grace to my coworker? He also deeply emphasizes appreciating the beauty and simplicity and finding joy in the commonplace moments that make up the mosaic of my existence.
The mosaic of existence, finding joy in the commonplace. It reminds me a bit of the secular concept of mindfulness, but it is anchored with a deeply spiritual, theological root. It is the practice of finding the divine, not just in the grand miracles, but in the mundane.
Exactly, the everyday stuff.
Finding God in the quiet act of making your morning coffee, in the silence of your commute, in the chaotic, messy laughter of your kids at the dinner table. But there's another practical application here that I think is perhaps one of the most powerful defensive tools outlined in the entire book. Moore writes that in the realm of authenticity, contentment works as an obstacle against the winds of discontent and jealousy.
This is crucial because jealousy is the toxic, inevitable byproduct of the comparison ghost we discussed earlier. Let's look at the mechanics of jealousy. Jealousy requires you to constantly be looking away from your own life. It requires you to look at someone else's plate.
Oh, that's such a good way to picture it.
Imagine you are sitting at the magnificent, sprawling banquet of life. The master craftsman has prepared a beautiful, specific meal perfectly tailored for your nutritional needs and your palate.
Sounds amazing.
But instead of picking up your fork, tasting the food, and enjoying the meal prepared for you, you are craning your neck, straining to see across the table to check if the person next to you got a bigger portion of steak or a better dessert.
And while you are exhausting yourself doing that, while you are filled with resentment over their dessert, your own beautiful food is getting cold. You are missing your own life.
Precisely. You are starving at a banquet. Contentment acts as a physical, psychological obstacle to that destructive behavior. It is the gentle hand on your chin that firmly turns your head back to your own plate.
I love that imagery.
It allows you to look across the table and say, wow, their meal looks incredibly lovely. I am genuinely happy they get to enjoy that. But look at this absolute feast I've been given. It is the rigorous daily discipline of keeping your eyes gratefully on your own assignment, your own divine design, and your own season of life.
I want to highlight one of the most poetic, striking lines in the entire text, which beautifully encapsulates this transition from striving to resting. It represents the ultimate freedom we've been building toward this entire deep dive. Towards the end of the chapter, Moore writes this: I've discovered how to live in contentment, and I'm no longer constrained by the never-ending pursuit of happiness. Now that the journey is over, I may dance in the rain of uncertainty of being me.
The never-ending pursuit of happiness. It is so deeply structurally ingrained in our Western psyche. I mean, it's even in the U.S. Declaration of Independence.
Yeah.
That happiness is a distant destination we have to aggressively hunt down and capture.
We really do treat it like a fugitive.
We think, I will finally be happy when I lose the last 10 pounds, when he proposes, when we buy the house, when I get the VP title, when the kids finally graduate and leave. It is always a pursuit.
And the very nature of a pursuit implies that happiness is always running away from you. It implies it is always just over the next hill, just out of reach. You are always exhausted because you are always sprinting.
Always sprinting.
But Moore is suggesting something profoundly radical here. You can give up the pursuit. You can just stop running. You can drop the hunting gear, look around you, and actually choose to be happy right here, right now, in the messy, unresolved, imperfect reality of the present moment. You can declare, the journey to prove my worth is over.
And that profound surrender leads directly to his final evocative image, dancing in the rain of uncertainty. Notice what he does not say.
Right.
He does not say that finding God, embracing your design, and achieving contentment magically clears the skies, parts the clouds, and makes every single day a sunny 75 degrees.
That would be a false promise.
He explicitly acknowledges the rain. He acknowledges the inherent, sometimes terrifying uncertainty of simply being human, of being me. The maze of life will still have massive obstacles. There will still be severe storms, unexpected grief, financial stress, and periods of deep confusion.
The weather doesn't change just because you found contentment.
Yeah.
But the difference, the life-saving difference, is your posture in the middle of the storm.
Exactly. Without contentment, without a secure identity, the rain makes you bitter, angry, and deeply resentful. You shake your fist and yell at the sky, demanding to know why you are getting wet when you tried so hard to be perfect.
Why me, right?
But with contentment as your constant, internalized companion, rooted deeply in the unshakable knowledge of God's unconditional love and your unique design, you don't just grit your teeth and endure the rain. You don't just survive it. You dance in it.
You dance in it.
You possess the internal power, as Moore says, to persist with grace and perseverance. You inhale the sweetness of appreciation, finding deep, resonant joy in the absolute certainty that God's provision is plentiful and your soul is secure, even when the external circumstances are completely chaotic.
You are unabashedly, unapologetically, wonderfully you, regardless of the weather report. That is just incredible. Okay, we have covered so much profound, heavy, and beautiful ground today. Let's trace the arc of the journey we've taken together through the lens of Elder William Moore's transformative message and really lock in these concepts.
It's been quite a journey.
It has. We started at the very beginning by recognizing our cosmic origins. We rejected the exhausting idea of random coincidence and embraced the truth that we are a meticulously planned symphony designed by a master clockmaker who intentionally included all of our specific years, eccentricities, and quirks.
We are not glitches.
Not at all. From there, we talked about the aggressive courage it takes to peel off the heavy, suffocating velvet masks of societal expectation. We completely reframed the Proverbs 31 woman, looking at her not as a burdensome checklist of domestic perfection, but as a blazing model of unapologetic, authentic defiance against the arbitrary constraints of her culture.
Yes, and once unmasked, we explored how to survive the elements and defeat the ghost of comparison. We learned the mechanics of making our own sincerity an invulnerable fortress by shifting our locus of validation.
By resting in the Creator.
Exactly. Rooting our worth entirely in the limitless love of the Creator rather than desperately seeking the fickle, ever-changing applause of the crowd.
And finally, after that long hike, we arrived at the delicate oasis of Chapter 23. True, deep-seated contentment. We unpacked the paradox of zealous contentment, learning how resting entirely in your secure identity actually frees you to dream bigger, take wilder risks, and pursue your passions with house money, completely free from the paralyzing anxiety of failure.
The house money changes everything.
It really does. We learned the mechanics of hitting the stop button, trading the frantic, exhausting pursuit of happiness for the grounded, grateful reality of being fully present, which allows us to finally dance with grace in the inevitable rain of life's uncertainties.
It is a comprehensive, deeply psychological, and profoundly theological roadmap that takes the reader all the way from chronic exhaustion to unshakable peace.
It truly is a roadmap to freedom. And as we wrap up this deep dive into the text, I want to leave you, the listener, with a final provocative thought to mull over as you transition back into the reality of your day.
Okay, what's the thought?
I want you to think about the biggest, most stressful goal, expectation, or problem that is currently weighing heavily on your shoulders right now. The thing that is keeping you up at night. The milestone you secretly think will finally make you feel like you are enough and let you exhale.
Bring that specific goal to mind.
Yes, and ask yourself this honest question. What if you miraculously achieved that massive goal tomorrow? What if you got the promotion, the house, the perfect relationship? Everyone applauded you, the ghost of comparison was silenced for a day, and yet you woke up the next morning only to realize your internal, baseline sense of peace hadn't changed one single bit.
The shoes still feel tight.
Exactly. The external world changed, but the shoes still felt exactly as tight on your soul. What if the release you are so desperately seeking isn't actually waiting for you on the other side of that achievement?
It's a sobering thought.
It is. What if you could choose to access that exact same elusive piece right now, today, in this very moment, simply by stepping off the treadmill?
Just stepping off.
What if you allowed yourself to just sit still, take a deep, lung-expanding breath, and thank the master craftsman for the quirky, eccentric, entirely beautiful design that is uniquely yours? And finally, after years of running, just stop to listen to the music of your own symphony. Thank you for exploring this with us. Take a deep breath, take off the heavy costume, and we will catch you next time.
Thank you for joining us today on From Manuscript to Ministry. If today's featured book encouraged, challenged, or inspired you, we invite you to take the next step, purchase a copy, and support the author behind the message. When you invest in their work, you're not just buying a book, you're sowing into good ground and helping advance the kingdom of God through faith-filled storytelling. Don't forget to subscribe, follow, leave a review, and share this episode with someone who needs it. Your support helps these powerful voices reach even further. Until next time, keep reading, keep writing, keep praying, and keep walking boldly in your calling. God is still turning manuscripts into ministries.